This week, we have a bunch of guests in the podcast that are very used to working together very closely. In part one, we have Minister Christian Santos, Minister for Employment, Equality, Culture, Tourism, Youth and Training, who will talk to us about his background, where he comes from as a person, but also as a professional, how he took on the mission of trying to shape the way people saw him after having been a man who had developed a very successful career in showbiz, in performance, in media, and tried to turn all of that into the different style of politician that he is today. In the second part, we speak to Jenny and her team at the SNDO. They tell us about the work that they do, how they engage with this very important and very sensitive subject of providing support and needs to the people in the community who need it, and generally about the slow but inexorable march towards a more egalitarian and fairer society. Welcome to Not Another Press Release. Christian, welcome to Not Another Press Release.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think of our set you were saying earlier?
It's very black, but it's good. It's quite elegant and it's got a nice little, I like the logo.
Okay.
But yeah, it's quite, I wouldn't say intimidating, but it's quite an intense, dark space.
Okay. So this is a way of doing a little bit of a different style of communications. And I wanted to start by talking about how you are a different style of politician. No, and I don't even know if you're comfortable with being defined as a politician.
I'm comfortable. I've been defined in many different ways, and politician is one of the nicest ones. And so yeah, I have no issue with that at all.
So we're used in Gibraltar and around the world to politicians being a lot of lawyers, a lot of people from a sort of public work kind of background. You are a guy who comes to this with an experience in showbiz, in music, in media, on TV. How do you bring that to your job as a politician and as a minister?
When I got into politics, I've always wanted to get into politics. A lot of people were surprised and a lot of people didn't know. But for me, it's always been something I've wanted to do because for a long period of time, I didn't necessarily feel represented. I felt Gibraltar was very well represented. I think we've been very lucky to have great leaders in our day and a lot of great people in politics. But I could never spot myself in Parliament. And I think it's very important to get different types of people, to have a diverse Parliament where people have different backgrounds. So for me, coming from essentially showbiz, I eventually moved into management within that sector. So, and then I wanted to get into, listen, I'm a kid who was brought up, and I know during, my husband says, oh, you need to stop saying this, but I was brought up in Varelbeg, like a normal child with a single income family. My dad worked shifts at the distiller. He was a distiller plant operator. We were a very normal family. I hate using the word normal, really, because really, what's normal anyway? But a very mainstream, normal working class family of what was working class, middle class at that time. Yeah. And Gibraltar has developed now, so working class is very different. And
did you grow up with a working class sort of consciousness of a certain, I belong to this class?
Yes, I did. I was very conscious of that. And I've always been... Okay, we always go back to the same, but it's always been with me about finding who I am and where I sit in the society and the communities. And for me, I've always wanted to know exactly who I am. And I know people fight labels, but I think labels are sometimes very easy for other people to give you, but also for yourself to identify somewhere. So for me, it was about finding my place. So I knew where I came from, I knew where other people came from, and I knew what different people's families were like. And I was a normal kid from a normal household when we all came from estates, and there was a bigger marked difference between the classes. And I remember very young, my dad was an avid, GSLP person, and it's not about getting into politics, but there was that divide at the time. The working class was very much there. So for me, since that time, when I saw, because I've lived the changes, not just politically in society, about so many things, how the education system has changed.
Que estamos viejos, ¿no?
Sí, pero no tan viejo. But I think la gente más vieja ha pasado diferente, no? I think I was in the perfect decades for who I am and the changes that I've seen and in the position I'm in now. You know, for me, I've seen, let's not go further. Like as a gay young person, homosexuality was legalized when I was 16 years old. So I've seen that change. I've seen the change of gay people getting rights. I've seen the change of education, how that worked, how you could not go to study until you got the points, and then it was made available for people like myself, you know, because we wouldn't have maybe otherwise have been able to do it, no? So where am I going with that? Yes, I was very aware of where I came from, where my family came from, what my dad did for work, what I did, and I've always wanted to feel represented in Parliament. And I think it's great to have a diverse Parliament with different people, which we now see more and more of, and to be able to be a part of it.
And you drifted off to a different, I think it's something you
I
do.
overshare all the
do
time.
It all the time. So originally I wanted to talk about how you are a different kind of politician.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background. So how did you become the person you are, and what are the big schools that you've been to, the big important life-changing lessons?
This is actually very important as to what makes me the politician I am, because I've been very fortunate that I've been very supported by my community at the time, by my family, by my friends. So I went to UK and I studied contemporary arts, much to my mum's dismay, because she wanted me to be a lawyer, or she wanted me to be a teacher. But I was arty, and that's all I wanted to do. But I was still quite academic. So I went to Nottingham Trent Uni, and then I moved to Mount View Conservatoire for the Performing Arts at the time, and that's when I specialized in acting and musical theatre. And from then, I just worked in the industry. I worked with Holland Park Opera. I worked with Disney for many years. I worked in different cruise lines. I worked in different theatre companies. I had a small production company that I had with 3 other friends in the UK. So I worked abroad for a long time, and then I came back, and then I started Santos Productions, and then I started doing a lot of the Janito comedies, which I think is going to be my legacy, no matter what I do. That is, and a very proud legacy I will leave behind, may I say. But of everything that I've done and will do in Gibraltar, I think that is the one thing that I leave behind, that people will go, ¿te acuerdas cuando de Santo? And that will be the thing. And then, of course, the GAMPA, I developed that, and that has grown exponentially, and it's a great resource for the local people. And then I was the mayor, as you know, for 2 years, and that I think that's my favorite thing I've ever done, because it was easy, because it was all good and nice and easy stuff. You know, you get to represent your people, your community, and I'm very proud to be Gibraltarian, because Gibraltar has given me everything. The good and the bad, It's given me my education, it's supported me. Whenever I've done a show, the community has helped me out, and they've supported everything I've done. It's also put me in situations that I've had to make choices, or I've had to confront people in certain ways, because people were not necessarily, I wasn't their cup of tea, maybe, and I've also seen a lot of negativity towards me, well, not a lot, but you know, the same as what happens is that everyone gets it, but being in the public eye, you get it in the public eye. But I'm very proud of Gibraltar, my people, my community, and being Gibraltarian. So the mayor of Gibraltar was a fantastic role, because you get to represent your people in the most positive way. And then I thought, if I want to make real change, it needs to be in politics, because I want to be the person that finds a solution, not sits at home creating problems or looking at problems or focusing on problems. So I thought, I need to get into politics. And I think I'm a good representation of a certain sector of the community.
What was the change that you wanted to bring when you jumped into politics?
For me, it depends. It's always how the ministries you're in. I'd love to... A lot of the changes are continuing positive change as well, because there's a lot that people have already lived through, and it's just about continuing that. And then it's about the little things for me a lot of the time. It's about the underdog most of the times, and my life has always been focused on that, on the underdog. How can I help people who need that extra bit of support? In employment, the rehabilitation that we're doing, the rehabilitation program and the reinstatement into employment, working with people with supported needs, the youth. I've always been very interested in listening to young people, listening to their voices, and see what I can do, because I've always felt a little bit like that. Even though I haven't been, in a way. There's always someone, I've always been the type of person that always feels that there's always someone a little worse off than you, no?
Empathic, no?
I guess so. I guess that's the word. I don't want to put myself out as a saint. I'm not that type of person at all. But I'm very pragmatic a lot of the time. So, and I'm very practical with the way I do things and the way I see things. So for me, it was about that. So I thought, okay, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not necessarily in public office. I'm not an accountant. I'm not one of these big jobs. But I have a brain that I can use. I was always a very academic kid. And I've always got a good sense of what's going on in the community. Yeah. And I'm a good listener.
And I can hold an audience.
As well. Yeah. So I use those skills. And I like coming into... When I came into office, I liked... At the beginning, it was a bit complicated because I had to shift around, who the Christian Santos people thought they knew and the Christian Santos, the politician.
I can remember for me, it's the other way around. So I go to politicians who have, if you like, the sort of the corporate facade, and they're like, I want you to teach me to be more showbiz. Yeah. And you come from completely the other side. You came from, I can hold an audience, and I can be a showman. I need to build myself the corporate kudos, if you like, the seriousness.
Yeah, because remember, a lot of people have seen me doing the show side, which I'm very proud of. And it's ironically, so one of the things that they tried to use against me at the time when I first put my name down for politics, I thought, how bizarre that someone wants to use the proudest moments of my life against me. I'm like, you really? But anyway, it's the way the cookie crumbles. No, and it's all about that. It's about a politician has this image. And for me, it goes further than that. A politician is a representation of who's out there voting for you. And for me, the difficulty wasn't changing who I was. It was making people see me in a different light, but still remaining the same person that I was before the 13th of October, 23. Because I haven't changed at all. But I needed to make people trust me in that field as a politician. And now, a lot of people see me in the street and they were like, I would have never thought that I would enjoy what you're doing or how you're doing it, or people who didn't necessarily trust that I could do the job.
I guess it's interesting. How did you know? Because people, it's true that they identify politicians with a certain way of speaking and being and presenting themselves, but a lot of them also dislike them. They say, we don't like this. How did you sort of identify the things that you did want to incorporate and not the ones that push people away and that alienate some people?
For me, it was always very important to speak in a way that everyone could understand, because that's what I wanted
They don't
from a
all
politician.
do that.
But everyone communicates in their own way. And I don't think people put it on. That's the thing. I always wanted to remain my authentic self. So for me, it was very important to stay true to who I was. And what I had to do was learn how politics work in the background, how Parliament worked, how you communicate in Parliament, how... remember, I came from being either self-employed or leading my own businesses. Right now, I'm not. I work for the people of Gibraltar, and decisions need to be made for the ultimate boss. And the ultimate boss is the community. Yeah. It isn't the chief, or it is the community. So you have a boss that tells you what to do in very roundabout ways, are very direct, but they don't get to you in the same way as a person. So for me, it was about staying true to who I was, making people realize that I hadn't really changed, that it was always the same me, because my whole thing is like, when I hear people say, te sabes subir la cabeza, and I've always fought against that, because the best piece of advice I've ever been given is never forget where you came from. And that is something I've always had at the back of my mind, because you're still the same person in whatever road you are, on your way up, on your way down, on your way sideways. And it's always been a very important thing that I've always kept with me. I've never really wanted to change, because it took me a long time to come to terms and accepting who I was. So why would I want to change it now? But in politics, it's that some people have different expectations, and they would have thought, este payaso, acuérdate tú, I came from comedy. But that is what has made me the person I am today within this community. Yeah. Because behind the actor who blackened his teeth and put an ugly wig on and ugly costumes to make people laugh, there was a lot of work in the writing to make sure that you're representing the audience that is watching you, and that type of work is what really excited me. The acting, se me viene muy fácil. It was the writing, the creating, the management of things.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but you know Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian Prime Minister, he was also a comedian and an actor. He would have never said that from seeing him today, because he comes across as such a strong, tough guy. But like, his thing was comedy. He did an interview recently, and that's what he really enjoyed. And he describes very similar things to what you're describing.
But for me, I want people to still see me and know that I come from there. But I don't want people to forget who I am before being a politician, because I haven't. And even when things are serious, there's a time for everything, you know. And I've not just done comedy; I've also done very serious work. But for example, I think there are points when you can lighten the mood a little bit, because sometimes things get unnecessarily intense. I'm not saying that you should demean serious moments, but I don't want my life as a politician to be this character of the politician. It is still me as a politician, doing the best I can for the people who have voted me and the people who haven't, because they're a minister for everyone in Gibraltar. And for me, it's about Gibraltar and progress for every Gibraltarian. So ideally, and I hopefully achieve the fact that people don't forget where I came from. And sometimes I love when people actually like try and demean who I am, because they try and bring what I used to do, and I'm like, that's not...
un payaso,
Sí,
un
and I'm
showman.
like, sí, but that's fine. I am. That's what I did. That's what I trained for, and that's how I entertained a community that sold out all my shows within minutes. And that is one of my proudest moments. And now I'm working for my community in a different way. So
You describe a journey in which society has changed, and you've seen it change. And in a way, I get the impression that it's kind of changed and adapted more to who you are as a person, more or less at the time when you needed that to happen. No, the doors have opened.
Yeah.
Have you had to push, or have they opened naturally?
It's a complicated one. I haven't actively had to push, because I've been very lucky that there's people in Gibraltar who've pushed for me, and people around the world that have. I think we all have a role in how the world progresses. And mine, I think a lot of the time has been, Madonna said this actually, like Madonna the singer, she said the most controversial thing I ever did was not giving up, or something like that. And I think that's one of the things that I think, my gosh, I think one of the most controversial things I've done is live in the mainstream, in a very mainstream life, being who I am. Because I think that is the example I want to give. And not because I don't want to fight for my rights. It's just because people have done that. And I feel I owe it to them to live the life that they have fought for people like me to be able to live. That's why when I got married, you know, my wedding was massive. Not only because I wanted it to be massive because I have lots of friends, but I thought there's a lot of people who fought for people like me to be able to get married. So I'm going to have my wedding was very mainstream. It was like any other wedding. And that's the whole thing. At some point, it will stop being a gay wedding. It will just be a wedding, you know? But there's a lot of people who fought for that. So I'm going to have the same wedding and celebrate it in the same way that everyone else does. And a lot of what I do is exactly that. I'm not ashamed of my husband, of going out with him, and I live a very mainstream life, which I'm very proud of. And
but as a normalized thing, rather than as an exercise of political advocacy or militance.
But I think that is my advocacy.
Okay.
That's how advocacy works for me. Because I'm in a role now where I have to do... I always get accused, this is the irony of the matter, I always get accused of only doing things for the LGBTQ plus community. It's a complicated one, because I'm very blessed to have had a predecessor who did all that work for me. So right now we're working on conversion therapy, and we're working on adding transgender people into the Crimes Act. But the main work has already been done. So I think the awareness that I am doing is the same for everything. But with regards to the LGBTQ plus community, it's how I live my life. That's my advocacy. Because I also have to represent people, I have to listen to the people who are not necessarily, not that I agree with, and not that we are going to necessarily go for that, because as a progressive government, we have our views on the matter, on all different things. No? But I'm always very grateful to the people who got out there before me, before I actually needed to, and did that type of more militant advocacy for me at a time when it was needed and I wasn't even around.
Okay. What about people who will say, well, advocating for minorities or sort of pushing this the rights of people is always going to be a work in progress, and we got to keep pushing, we got to keep fighting, and you need to always have an element of that kind of combative, militant conscience. Otherwise, backsliding, and we've seen it happen in other parts of the world, will become a problem.
Yeah. Any minority is always in danger. So I'm big on being an advocate and fighting for all minorities. We're at a point where I'm in a position where I know that we're not going to backtrack on rights, because I'm the person in the government at the moment where we know that we're not going to, because that is not where we are politically. On women's rights, on race, on LGBT plus community, when that's not where we're at politically, it's the complete opposite. We're going to defend all these minorities. But there are, as a politician, you do it in a different way. So I will support minorities in the way that I can politically, because I'm in a fortunate place where I can do it, and it's about controlling that legislation and any regulations. It passes through us. So I know where we're at. So when people are feeling unsafe everywhere else in the world, I'm like, I'm that person in that position that I can make sure that that doesn't happen here.
Claro. But the way it happens is normally society moves.
Yeah.
The discourse changes. This anti-woke movement, the pushback, the reactionary pushback starts gaining momentum, and then a different person comes along, and then all that changes.
But this is not new. The anti-woke movement has just been named woke, but essentially we're on two sides of the spectrum. That's a very right-wing way of looking at life. That has always been there. The difference is that people are comfortable talking about it now.
And it's bigger.
And it's bigger, exactly, because there are people in leadership positions now around the world that are voicing their discontent at how the world is with the left in rules in government. No?
There are positions that 20 years ago no politician would have touched with a barge pole, like positioning themselves against feminism or against gay rights. And now mainstream politicians are saying, well, mira, maybe we went a bit too far.
And that happens, yes, but it's not about being too... But that's the thing that I think we got wrong. They use phrases like we've gone too far, or the left, or the world is going very woke. It's not woke, it's about respecting people. And a lot of the time, it's very difficult for me to understand. And this is something that I don't know where it came from. I've always been this child that has never understood how people are so affected by other people's lives in anything. Like, I never understood when I've read a lot about how, in the 50s and how racism was back then, no? In the 50s, I never understood that. I remember being a child and thinking, how on earth does something like this happen? Or with women, like, women weren't even able to vote just over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Or in the 70s, women couldn't have a credit card, and you think, I was alive around that time when women couldn't even have a credit card. And you think, it's always happened, and now we're at a point where people have rights. That's all it is. And the moment that people are losing their power because other people are gaining it, that's when people start having a problem. So the anti-woke movement is what your anti is people actually being able to freely be themselves. And a lot of the time I always want to ask someone, it's like, trans people now are the topic of choice. They are now where gay people were 50 years ago, where black people were 60, 70 years ago, where women were 80, 90, 100 years ago.
They're perceived as a threat to society, basically.
But it's one that really doesn't make a lot of sense, because I'm like, we're trying to give this tiny demographic of the world and of society this power of danger, and you think, it seems like you always need to find a common enemy. And for me, I always want to ask people, I'm like, what is really the problem? What is the problem with that demographic of choice right now, which is, for example, the trans community? Or a lot of people still... There's a song in a musical called Avenue Q that's called Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. And that's so true, because there will always be some racial slur around, some problem with some race, some problem with some faith community, some problem with any minority, with women, how people have an issue with women in leadership positions. We did a questionnaire within the civil service, from the Ministry of Equality. And for example, we're collating all the exams, all the results. Over 30% of people thought that people from the LGBTQ plus community should not be in leadership roles. Wow. I thought, this is very bizarre. The Minister for Equality is in that demographic. And not only that, you think, why does the...
How? Yeah.
Why does the label... The same with women. A lot of people feel women shouldn't be in leadership roles. And I'm like, how does the label before the word people dictate what someone else thinks? Like a person of the, you know what I mean? An LGBTQ plus person, a woman, like the person is the person. Yeah. And the label is so secondary to how that person can succeed. And this is what brings the whole issues with the woke and anti-woke movement, where people just seem to want to have a thumb over other people's heads, and it's just very strange to me.
I think it's the fear of how that person's or that collective's influence is going to transform society and transform the things that they hold dear, which makes no sense, because you might be much more traditional in your marriage, for example, than many heterosexual couples that swing and do all sorts of stuff. Yeah, the thing that people that come at life from a different place are going to degrade traditional values and change society, as you know, with its comforts and its. That's what scares people.
Yes, but if we go back, would we still be comfortable with slavery? Because that was normal back a few hundred years ago. Would we be comfortable to go back 120 years ago when women had zero rights? Like, the world needs to change.
Of course, but there's also there needs to be an element, in my view, of slightly unapologetic sort of advocating for a particular position. So certain things, as an institution, we're not going to allow to be challenged. No? So, for example, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I think that the event of International Men's Day sounds to me like the sort of materialization of reactionary pushback. You have a Women's Day, we have to have a Men's Day. In fact, it's one that isn't celebrated around the world widely, and a lot of people, when we go there, we make the videos and we do the promotion. A lot of people say, "But why do we need a Men's Day? Like, surely we're doing the Women's Day because of the discrimination, historic discrimination that's existed." What do you think about that?
Okay, I was a big advocate for that, because I think we need the Ministry of Equality was set up for the protected characteristics. Men isn't one. But I feel men were facing different issues. And what we can't do is push one way and ignore another way. And for me, I did it. And that was the first one I did, actually. It wasn't reactionary because I did the other ones, because I came into office in October. So the first event I did was in November. And for me, and it was that one, it was International Men's Day. And I did it because we'd come from a time where we'd seen a rise in suicides, death by suicides, and it was men. And I thought, there is a side of how heterosexual men are dealt a card in life as well, that they need to abide by, that they may not feel comfortable settling in. And I think mental health problems in men there's far too many issues with mental health in men and death by suicides for me to look over it and just think, men don't need it. So we need different things. Men need a different, for example, what you do in International Women's Day and what you do in Pride is very different, because it's about the rights of people who don't necessarily have it. But with men, it's a different focus. This year we worked with Beyond Equality, and it was about masculinity and toxic masculinity and where we were at with that and what we are teaching young men. Because I think that is also an important part, is how we teach men to be men.
I really enjoyed the sessions, by the way. I thought they were very useful.
They're great, but it's a different... We don't have to fight for the rights of men, because there's no issues for us in that regard.
And does it worry you that people who actually maybe don't even go to the conferences, who know they're there, but see it as some kind of an endorsement of the pushback?
I hope not. Or people should then maybe go and see what it's about. It's open to everyone. I always try and do what is right, and then hope that people accept it for what it is. So every time you send a press release out and it goes on social media, people comment on the headline. They don't read the article. So I will sit there and read comments on an article that they haven't read, because the headline says something in particular and they're commenting on that. This is the same. They will make an opinion on what their feeling is that's happening, and not necessarily on what the content is. So I invite everyone to come. That's how we do it. It's open to everyone. All conferences are. We don't do a pride conference just for gay people. We don't need to preach to the choir. We don't do Women's International Day the same. And we do the same for every year. We do for every characteristic. So we did conferencing last year. This year we're doing workshops. And then every year we do something different. So it touches different sides of the community.
I think there's something that maybe the people who agree with that kind of thinking will want us to approach. It's a subject that I find is a little bit tired, but I think we should talk about it anyway. In the world of trans people and trans politics, I think a lot of the issues go around how we deal with children and how we deal with the issues of children, wanting to experiencing life as trans children and how we respond to that as a society. Is it something that you guys are talking about in the ministry? I imagine so.
Well, it's we work very closely with the trans community because there's very few of them. The numbers here in Gibraltar are very small. So we listen to what their needs are. But this is not just trans community. We're very fortunate in Gibraltar, actually, that we can afford to do that with people as a whole. No? We can, especially with medical treatment, is one of those things that here in Gibraltar, it's very much bespoke a lot of the times. The trans community, at the moment, we haven't been confronted with a child that needs that type of treatment. So it's not something we've actively had to make decisions on. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be more discussions on it, especially with the gender the gender clinic, and see how that would work, because we've had to make choices with regards to how we do surgery and all that type of policy decisions have had to be made on that. But it's a for me, it's what happens, I'm very empathetic with that side of the community. I had a friend once, and I wrote a play actually about it with this young man who, for me, has been a huge inspiration. He's much younger than me, and I thought, goodness, your journey at such a young age has been so complicated, so complex, so difficult, with the world against you. It's like going up a slippery slope with oily shoes, and still you're there because that is who you are. And I had to understand that as well, because I've never really felt that. And I had to live through situations with him to realize, goodness me, what this demographic is facing, because people who don't understand who they are making decisions for them. I will always have their back, and I will always stand by them, because I will stand by anyone who needs that extra support, because no one asks for help or support if they don't need it, really. And even when someone asks for help or support, people are like, they're entitled. You always need to dig deep and see, where is this coming from? Because you don't, as a human, tend to ask for that. Maybe they ask for 10 things and really they need one, but you know that they do need that one. That's why. So with the trans community, that's where I'm at. Yeah.
And the trans community are, if you look at the statistics, the most vulnerable within the vulnerable at ridiculous levels. Yes. The level of discrimination and violence and abuse they suffer is
exactly
through the roof.
It's something that is because they're such a minority, and what's happening is, and what we're seeing in the world now with the differences between the European Commission and the different parts of the world and the different governments, different organizations, everyone has a different view on it. And I always go back to the same thing. We're talking about people. It is always people first. I live in a very person-centered, my head and my 1 by 1 square meters of space is very person-centered. And I try to take that into my politics as well, because I need to make sure that whatever choices I make are person-centered first. So a lot of decisions are made on scaremongering or on these big blanket statements or opinions, and sometimes you just have to go, there is a person. Behind every decision, there is a person. And chances are they'll be vulnerable. And if they weren't vulnerable before, we can make them vulnerable by the choices we make. So let's always go back to the seed and the root of where we're at, which is always a person. So how can we make it better for that person?
When I talk to people about this issue, I usually tell them that for a politician, the only real KPI que le vale is a happy citizen, a happy customer, a stakeholder that's that comes back to you and says, "Good job, this is good." Like this is the feedback. Like in other professions, you make more money, you're happy, or you have a series of KPIs or some kind of feedback mechanism. For politicians, it's only happy customers, happy citizens. Yeah. So if only for that. Yeah. Even if they're not doing because they're empathic and generous, if only to feel good about themselves, that's what they're striving to do most of the time. And working very hard and working very long hours, because there is no other reward. Your salary is the same, like this is not, there's no other way to even reward your ego if that's what's driving you, Would you say that's true? Do you
When I got into politics, everyone said, "Oh, don't." And I thought, no, it's going to be great. And you think differently, because you get into politics because you want to do better and you want to be a part of how your community runs. But it's so much more than that, because then you realize that every decision you make impacts the whole community, and everything you do is important. But I can tell you, I sit in a cabinet every Monday, and people would be surprised at the passion with which not just the newer ones, all 9 of us sit there and we are, and usually when an argument happens, it's not even an argument, it's always how can we make it better? No, but if we do it like this, it's better. It generally is always about that. So it's very disheartening, when people put your work down, but it is what it is. It is, you know it's going to happen, and you need to have a thick skin, but you need to know that what you're doing matters. And there are people who are going to be, politically driven on both sides, who will fight for you, and people who will fight against you. As long as you keep your feet on the ground and remember why you got into it in the first place, so at least that's for me. Why did I get into politics? When you have a bad day, when things don't go your way, when you hear people not necessarily being that positive about what you're doing on social media or whatever, you always have to go back and say, why did I get into this? Wait, today's not been a good day, but tomorrow it might, and tomorrow it will. And then you get to help one person, and that is already enough. And not because of they're going to vote for me. Just because you've genuinely changed someone's life. And it's fantastic to be able to feel like that. That's why I got into politics, and that's what I see from my colleagues. I genuinely sit around, and people are going to think, because people will think that that's what we do as politicians, but it is a genuine desire to make your homeland the best it can be, and to fight for the people that are around you who have built the community you live in.
We have to talk about this. We've already been talking for a long time, but I think it's important that we do a little bit about the treaty, and that way that gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about your other portfolio. So tourism, that exciting future that I think the treaty promises to deliver. How are you feeling about that prospect?
The treaty and tourism are good. I like the best brother and sister you can get, because now we've had a time of uncertainty because we didn't know how it was going to work out. From a tourism perspective, imagine we could have had a no-access border, which would have made tourism across the border very difficult. It would have affected cruise ships, and it wouldn't have affected air routes, airline routes, but it would have affected cross-frontier tourism. Now, what we have is an open access to the EU as a whole. Our airport, for example, right now, our catchment area is 38,000 people because we have a frontier. You can use it, but right now, without a frontier, for a 35-kilometer radius, we've got 2 million people.
2 million
2 million return passengers. So we're the closest airport for 2 million people. At 55, we are shared the closest between us and the next one. So that's 4.5 million return passengers possibility. So what we have to do now is take that, make these are commercial decisions, bringing more flights. What we're doing is we're marketing Gibraltar as a destination. The past 2 years has seen a huge rise. Last year, from what I hear from hotels, was one of their best years. We've seen a huge rise in cruise liners coming into Gibraltar. Our aim is to bring more quality cruise liners as well, because sometimes it's not necessarily about more people, it's about the right
better
person.
people.
Yeah.
Better people, that sounds awful.
Not better people, but higher spenders, that's what we want.
One of the things I was chatting to someone in the podcast, actually, I think it was might have been with Terence.
Yeah.
The impact that it's always had on our product.
Yeah.
Imagine you come to Jib to visit for a day, like many millions of people do every year. And to go in, you have an hour and so you spend your day and maybe you have a lot of fun. Then you go out and then you have another 1.5 hours in the sun. You leave and you're like, actually, this experience was pretty rubbish because of the problem I had.
But there is an issue with, at one point when Brexit came in a few years ago, as soon as I came in, actually, they changed the rules of how you could cross the frontier. So they now, from being able to come in the coach, then they had to stop, cross on foot, get on another coach. Then so it was even worse, and we saw numbers go down, and I think it's because of that, because that's when the numbers started going down. So this is going to see a big rise in numbers, because Gibraltar is still the most popular day trip from Malaga down for tour operators, and we have a great product. And what's good with our product is that it's very British in nature in Europe and in the Iberian Peninsula, but not only that, it's very easy to access. So, for example, as a cruise port, you go to Rome, and Rome, you have to bless Rome because it's one of the best cities in the world. But you stop and you have to go an hour and a half to 2 hours on a coach. Here, within 10 minutes, you're in the Upper Rock. So you can see it quickly, you've got access by foot. So that's why it's a very popular cruising destination. I think that's where we've got it right. I think we've done really good at selling Gibraltar as a cruise destination. That's why the numbers have really bumped up within a year and a half. We've done good there, and I think we're doing very well in our marketing campaigns and making Gibraltar feel new and fresh as well. We've done a big branding campaign in the UK, and I think that's really worked. And now we need to sell the airport, and we need to sell Gibraltar through air a little bit better. So
you have a strategy to deliver this. What's the plan? Are you guys going to do a series of events? What's the plan?
Well, we do a lot of roadshows in the UK anyway. We go to every conference. We have a big training package online for all travel agents. And it's just about adding now the airport. We have two different products that we are now going to work on hard. One is the airport.
For transport purposes.
Pardon?
As a transport resource.
Yes, yeah.
Rather than the tourist product of Gibraltar.
As well, because we need to make sure that we do continue marketing Gibraltar as a destination, but also the airport to be used as a destination and as a hub for the surrounding areas. Because right now that we're working on a 50-50, people stay, people leave, if we look at how that could expand, those are big numbers to bring into Gibraltar. So we need to make sure that we continue with our TV, radio and press in the UK, which is our main feeder market for the first few months, so that we make sure that the flights that we have are working in a way that companies see that they can invest in new flights. We've got a lot of interest in new European flights, so hopefully those will be coming in 2027. We want more flights. More flights equals more people, equals more overnight stays, equals more income for Gibraltar. So we've got a two-pronged system now, not just destination, but now destination and airport.
And travel, okay. So all of that is very exciting stuff. We're all looking forward to all these new challenges and all the new work that we're going to have to do.
Well, we were nominated for an award. We've been nominated for one of the biggest tourism awards as a tourist board, and we keep on being featured and mentioned. The cruise liners want to collaborate in our events as well, so we're collaborating in the Gibraltar Literary Festival. So we're doing good as a destination.
Nice. I imagine those showbiz skills of yours came in handy in that portfolio, no?
Yes, it's essentially you have to network. So you put on your charm
a big show on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's end by talking about training, because I know this is something that's very close to your heart. We've done a bunch of videos together, showcasing the work that you guys are doing. Why is it something that you feel so strongly about?
As I said at the beginning, I think there's a lot of people who need an avenue for them. We came from a Gibraltar, we've come from a Gibraltar that's so academically focused that a lot of people have been left behind. And for me, I'm very passionate about those people. And I think the training center and all the other apprenticeships that we've done the nail apprenticeship, like nail technician, insurance, bus drivers, coach drivers, tour guides. We've done tons because we want to give an opportunity for those people who don't necessarily want to go and study abroad. And they can stay here. We've got construction and mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. And I love seeing how the training center has progressed.
I think that's the place where I've seen you be yourself more spontaneously, more naturally, no? And I've seen few politicians be able to connect with a demographic so removed, like super young trainees, non-academic, with politicians, like in a very different part of the life spectrum.
I
And you
identify.
connect with these people.
Yeah, I have always connected with that type of person because that's who I see myself as. Because I'm in a position now where I'm a politician, but I haven't always been that person. I've been a person who's always felt this bond with that person who's slightly maybe felt left out, or a younger person, and I'm very young at heart, and I love it, and I love going to a training center, I love going to the youth symposium, I love going to the day centers with the elderly, because I learn so much more from those people who don't seem to be listened to in the same way, because we are ruled by a professional environment. And sometimes I sit in the day center and an old lady tells me about how her life was, and I learn about what Gibraltar was like. So
we live in a society that's centered around the winners, the beautiful, the successful, and everybody has to catch up and live up to that.
But a success that is marked because it's marked by the community we live in, or who decides that it is, because like the beautiful. But what is, for me, I love the human body, and beauty is so different. Like success, for me, success is very personal. My idea of success is not necessarily yours or someone in the training center. For them, it's about being able to maybe do a full plaster, a full wall. I wouldn't even be able to think that is success for me because I would be unable to do it. So I don't think I'd ever succeed in it. It would take me far longer. And for me, success is different. For me, success really is very peculiar because for me, it's about waking up every day and being happy. And it's really that basic for me. Because when I was young, I wasn't sure that was an option for me. So the moment that I achieved happiness, that's when I've been truly successful. I'm equally happy in my job than I am with my friends. And that is success for me.
Wow, that's inspiring. And you found it. It's a path, no? Because we have ideas of what we think is going to bring happiness, but then you get there and it's like, oh, actually, this is not it.
Exactly.
And I have to actually go and find what makes me happy. And it's not obvious, no? Yeah. But thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for being so candid, so real, so honest, like you always are. And we'll love it to have you around again in the future.
Whenever you need me, I'm here, Anton.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Guys, welcome to Not Another Press Release. It's great to have the team at SNDO here today. We've been talking in the lead up to this interview that you have been doing a fair bit of media. People have seen you around, and you want to get your team involved more, and you want people to understand that there's a team behind you and a host of services available. So tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, I opened the office over 4 years ago, just about 4.5 years ago. And it was just me. So at the time, it was me promoting the office, me out there. It's time now for the community to understand that it's not just me. I'm not alone anymore. We have a team behind Minister Santos, and 2 of our members are here today, but there are actually many more back in the office in Europort. So this is what I really want to get out there. It's not just Jenny. There's a whole lot of team with lots of different roles, and this is what we're here to promote today.
Okay, so guys, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Okay, so my name is Ian Bajoki. So I started with Jenny like a year and a half ago, and I'm a key support worker. So my main focus will be families, charities, and so on. So it's one of the main things that I do is clinics, and it's just having a normal chat with what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. So for families and individuals that come along, they don't know what they expect when they finish, but they always end up saying, I come in with nothing and I've gone out with a lot of information.
Okay. And you provide information, support you, and make them understand what you guys can do for them, give them a sort of orientation.
I think it's the main thing will be guidance. We guide them through where they need to go, depending what they say and depending what the issues are and the worries they're going through and so on. It's mainly where we can guide them, or I can guide them through, which is the main issue. But I think it's amazing for me. It's rewarding at the end, because I know that I'm helping out someone which they've started the conversation in the clinic with nothing, and they gone out with saying thank you at the end, because they've been struggling a lot throughout the years, or since they had there's many issues at home, and for them and for me it's rewarding.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Donovan Gallia, Jenny's compliance officer. Whereas I may not be Jenny's favourite, that's Ira. I'm her
Office politics here emerging very quickly.
Guys, please.
I am her right-hand man. I work alongside Aaron. I do everything and anything to do with complaints, more so out and about than in the office. Anything from what we're working on now with Section 14, which is the buildings, the National Disability Strategy, the blue badges out and about on the street, being the face of the office with regards to blue badges and the abuse. I'm going to put it out there from the offset. It's impossible to eradicate all the abuse, but we will eradicate as much of the abuse as we can. I engage with the community whenever I'm out and about doing these checks, especially the elderly that use the blue badges more, and they do provide extremely useful information with regards to, the abuse of, and I'll give you an example of, such as a family member has an elderly member of the family that has a blue badge, but they're in Montalvania. They keep the blue badge, and I've got a parking space whenever I go to town. This information is crucial to us, and I have tackled countless scenarios where the blue badge has either been revoked or a letter of warning has been sent out and it hasn't happened again. That is what we want to do. It's not about fining, etc. It's about being out there, promoting, engaging, and pointing people in the right direction, that abuse is not right.
I think that one of the things we could start by doing is talking a little bit about, because you've talked about your clinics and you talked about sort of the compliance side of things. Who are your stakeholders? Who are the people you work with? What are the demographics that you normally work with, so people have an idea?
Most certainly. The office began to support families, and I need to stress that, because that was the original idea. I remember Chief Minister sitting me down and saying, Jenny, I need you to write a national disability strategy, and I need you to signpost families, because the complaints that were getting to him was that families were alone. They were navigating this disability journey with hardly any support, having to run around from one government department to another. Things were working in silos, and we needed to just bring everything together. So that was the original brief. That's what we started doing. And that has evolved a lot. And in evolving, we're not just supporting families, which will always be our priority, and I need to stress that. But it's also about supporting those charities, those NGOs who also need to have their voices heard. What are their members saying? Let's listen to what is happening there, and let's support you. Let us work with you as one. We're also supporting professionals within HMGOG. And that takes a lot of our time, because we cannot expect professionals in other departments to know about disability. I go to the point that even if you have a lived experience of disability, you only know that lived experience. I have my own lived experience of disability, and I do not have that lived experience, let's say, of having a stoma bag. Neither do I want one. But this is where my research, my degree, my professionalism comes in. But I need to transfer that knowledge and get those professionals to understand what the lived experience of the members of our community is. Okay. So it's about families, it's about charities, it's about professionals in the public sector, but also the private sector. I get a lot of emails from the private sector asking for advice. So that is what we do as well.
Okay. So you just mentioned personal experience. How important is personal experience to work in your department? And maybe if you could share your own personal experiences, I think it would be, illustrative.
I've gone public with this before. I've got my own personal lived experience since the age of 4 with my arthritis. I then went off and became a professional. I then got my degree, got my studies and everything else. And then ironically, I had my son. So I've got lived experience of arthritis, being in a wheelchair myself. And I've also got lived experience of having a child with profound learning disabilities and medical conditions. But I need to stress, I really do need to stress that yes, I have this lived experience, but what really makes me appropriate to be in this role is my professionalism. So my degree, everything that I've studied and everything that I've researched, because it's together that gives me the position that I'm in, the knowledge that I have to be able to say and advise certain people. Lived experience is key, and I want to develop an office where we have members of staff, and I think most of us do, have lived experience. But I keep stressing to the team that yes, your lived experience is fantastic. I need you there for what that empathy, etc., etc. But actually, I've made sure that they're all trained up, because lived experience alone is not enough.
Of course.
So.
I think, and I agree with Jenny, apart from the lived experience, training is crucial. And we've been doing training since day one. So it is part and parcel of what we do. Okay. Lived experience, I think it is crucial as well.
And you can't teach that?
No, but you can actually link that lived experience for the person I've got in clinic, for example, because I can help them out because I've gone through that. Okay. I've got 2 kids. I've got 2 children. One of them is autistic, and I've got the old one with ADHD. So I've got the 2 sides at home. So it is for me in a way of trying to listen to the person I've got in front of me, but at the same time I can help them out because I've got it at home. So I know more or less. I can help them out. And honestly, I probably have got to say it. I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD. So for me, as it's been a struggle throughout all my life. It's not trying to find out loads and loads of questions there. So for me, knowing this now, it's opened up, and I can help other people as well. And yes, I do believe, and I agree with Jenny, that lived experience, it does help us in a way to react and to connect with people that come through our office. Yeah.
I feel like I've been dropped in the deep end now. Whilst I do not have lived experience, I do bring to the table quite a lot of experience with regards to my past. I spent 12 years in the military. I spent almost 18 years in the police force. And granted, whilst I do not have their lived experience, I do bring my experience to the table. Having said that, and whilst I do not have the lived experience, I've found a new calling within the office. I am extremely passionate in what I do, and I thank Jenny for bringing me on board, because when I started in the office, I wasn't with the SNDO. I was with the youth. She roped me in, and I have to say I found a new calling, because disability, accessibility is not just about building a ramp for a disabled person to go in to gain access into a shop or whatever. There is so much more, and I've had this conversation with Jenny in the office countless times. I'm like amazed as to how much more there is behind the scenes that people may not be aware of, and that is what we are there for, to raise that awareness, to make people aware of, there is a distinct gap that needs to be covered. There is that bridge that needs to be built, and that is where we strive to get to and achieve, hopefully in the not too distant future.
I think it's also important, because we were talking about the podcast and how we wanted to get a lot of the people of your team, and hopefully in the future we can get others too, to be present, because it's not just about talking about the issues, but also about making them visible, allowing people with disability to have a space in public discourse. This year, you guys were very kind to invite me to an event in the International Day of Disabilities, where we discussed the language of disability in the media and in sort of in public opinion. And I was very, very cautious because as someone who works in the press office, and we are kind of one of the sort of gatekeepers of this maligned expression or political correctness or whatever you want to call it, using the right kind of language in the right kind of context. I remember saying this has to be a conversation that has to be led by the people that have skin in the game, the people who experience it, who work with people who have special needs. And we're here to support them and to help them. But really, it's not up to us to tell them how they have to speak about their issues. And we have to more be there to listen and understand. No?
Yeah. I'm just going to pick up on a word you said there, special needs. I mean, that is exactly what this is all about. Yeah. We have renamed the office. When Minister Santos first came into administration, we had this conversation and he made the decision to change it to supported needs. Why? Because across the rest of the world, the word special doesn't seem appropriate anymore. However, we do have the word special still in our education system. Why? Because we follow British standards, and in the UK, special is still used in education. And I mean, I could be talking about language and semantics because I'm really passionate about this topic for a very long time. But in a nutshell, what we need to realise is it doesn't really matter the language we use as long as the person we're using it with is fine with what you're saying.
And your intentions are the right ones too. No?
Yeah.
That was also my point, one of the few points I made in the conversation.
So, for example, we have the word malito, which is constantly used in Gibraltar. And I always say, okay, my son no está malito. He's not sick, he's not poorly. Yeah. It's the way he is. Yes, he might be malito when he's got a cold, like you and I. But that is a language that is used in terms of endearment in our community. Yes, we need to change it because
it's not used maliciously.
It's not used maliciously.
I remember my first days in the office and I said it. So-and-so está malito, and Jenny, don't use malito.
It's the line between expressing sort of empathy and being patronizing.
Yes.
No,
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's a difficult one.
Yeah. At the moment in the office, I mean, when we're doing all of our policy work, I align the office language that we use with the UN language. And it's a very important point because the United Nations use language persons with disabilities, so person first language. However, UK government do not use person first language. They use disabled person, disability first. What is right, what is wrong? I'm not going to go into that debate right now. But in Gibraltar, because we want to seek the UN Convention, we're using UN person first language. When I did my degree, many years ago, the language has since changed. And I took out my dissertation about a couple of months ago, just to reminisce a bit. And I was absolutely horrified at the language that I was using because it is completely outdated. I mean, even the definition of autism is completely outdated now. When I first did my degree, it was a triad of impairments. That doesn't exist anymore. So this is why I feel so strongly about getting the staff always trained up and continuing with that CPD. Because one, lived experience is not enough, although it's crucial. But two, language research keeps developing and we need to stay up to date.
And I agree with Jenny because the majority of the people that I get in the clinics, for example, they just recently had diagnosis been presented to them, in front of them, by the doctor. Your son or your daughter has so-and-so. So for them it's the first time, and it's not that they don't accept it, it's that they really don't know where to go through or where to go or how to research and so on. And it's a new world for some of them. So when they come to us, it's just giving them the right tools, the right information, and we've got a couple of things that they do get help with. We've got something called the disability information card. It's a disability information card. It's just it's yellow, so you can see it. So it does give you the information per person. With it won't show the diagnosis because nobody needs to know your diagnosis. There's no need. You're a person. But there's certain icons, the disability icons that we put on that will define what you're going through. Mobility issues, maybe a +1, you know, those kind of things. So that disability information card is used by the majority of the people that come along to our office. And it's a tool for them that they feel comfortable with.
Of course.
You know, we recently had a chat with the bus company, for example, and the bus drivers, they know that this disability information card is around. So you can use that disability information card as an ID. So you can go into the bus, use a bus service, go in, and they know, the bus drivers know that there is someone using the service with a disability information card.
Yeah. To add to what he's just said, and I'm sure that both Jenny and Ian will agree, more often than not, although they come for support and guidance, but more often than not, and I've experienced this just the other week when I was out and about, people that need this support, all they want is somebody to talk to. And give them the time of day. Whereas perhaps, and we're all guilty of this, even with our own family members, you don't have time, you got to take the kids to football, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you just don't have the time. Whereas when they come to us, maybe they just want to chat, because this and that is not right, because my neighbor is parking in my window, and maybe in doing so, we can help them out by knocking at the door of that neighbor. Yeah, okay, the elderly lady downstairs, you just parked, can you avoid parking there because of fumes, this, and all they need is the time of day.
And I go even further. I mean, last week I had someone coming in, and it was, he just wanted to have a chat, that's all. Because nobody was listening. You know, nobody was there to sit down with him and have a chat. And at the same time I could help him, he helped me. Because it was so inspirational to hear that person, the way he was talking, the manner he was talking, and it was like, wow. I stood up at the end and I shook his hand, and I was like, amazing, wow, I've got no words. And for him it was like, this is the way I have to go from now on, this is me. So for me it was very inspirational, don't get me wrong.
And to add to this, we need to consider that a disability journey is very complex, and people think very much of the medical model of disability and your diagnosis and your medication if you need some. But actually, it has massive implications on your social aspect. Some people shy away to talk to you because they don't know how to talk to you because of your disability. Some people, just their disability affects them in so many different ways that they keep quiet because they don't want to burden their loved ones with it. And a lot of the times they come to clinic and they say, oh, Jenny, Ian, Donovan, I've never told anybody this, but it's this little thing, and it's maybe something really minute that's really bugging them, and it's something that we can change the system with. But a lot of them, a lot of persons with disabilities feel like they're a burden. And this is what we're trying to remove. That sensation, that feeling of, one, you're not alone in that disability journey, and two, no, you are not a burden. We want to hear
sometimes they feel like the office is like a bond. It's like bonding. And they come along. It's safe haven. It's safe for them to come along and just have a chat. I mean, and I tell them every time we finish the actual clinic, which takes an hour and a half, and I can take it on to 2-3 hours. I got time. No issues.
Most of the clinics he does, I see the people that come and see us come in, and you can tell in the body language when they come in, they're all tense and apprehensive, and when they leave, it's a totally different person. Really relaxed. Appreciative, smiling, and you're like, that's not the same person that's gone in. And I think that's what we're all about.
We have to bring some of these people to the podcast and sit them down. No, but it's very, I think that we find ourselves in a situation where when you're dealing with people with supported needs or disabilities, you can generate sort of unwanted outcomes by being insensitive, but you can also generate unwanted outcomes by being too sensitive.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of people who sometimes don't know how to respond to the situation, how to talk to people, how to engage.
And this is where the language stems from, that UN language I was talking about earlier. It's about the person first. I mean, only 2% of disabilities, I'll confirm this for you, I need to double check my statistics, but from memory, only 2% of persons with disabilities are born with their disabilities. 98% of disabilities are acquired. Mm-hmm. And this is what, even in particular, helps people within clinic. It's that journey of, I've lost who I am because of my disability. And I literally call it a grieving process. You go through the 7 stages of grieving in the same way as a bereavement. You are grieving the person that you were, the person that you thought you were going to become. Mm-hmm. And it's the same, and I can tell you as a mother, it's the same when you have a child. My child was born with his disability, but I still to the day grieve the child that could have been.
Yeah.
I love my son, don't get me wrong, but it's not the idea of the child that you thought you were going to have.
And I also imagine, because the 7 stages of grief end with acceptance, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't end. You can go through the different stages.
That's what I was going to say. Is that
Yeah.
I think that there's one more stage, which is the stage of empowerment.
Yeah.
Not only accepting
Yes.
yourself, but now actually sort of identifying with the new person you've become and embracing that and
Yes.
being outspoken about it. Huh?
And that is what I want to achieve in Gibraltar. I don't want persons with disabilities feeling like they're not empowered. This is really the work that we're doing through clinics, trying to support you individually, through compliance, yeah? Some people misuse or abuse because, yes, of a sense of entitlement. But where is that sense of entitlement coming from? There are other issues underlying there. When you unpick it, you realise that.
I was about to go into the flip side of the people that come in and are really appreciative. There's also the flip side, which also needs to be mentioned. The people that come and they don't see the error in the ways. One that comes to mind, and I hope that I'm not overstepping what I'm going to say, an individual has a severe injury, he's issued with a blue card. In time, in years, he recovers and doesn't need the blue badge. But yet, he continues to abuse. He's told that he has to hand in because it's been revoked by the panel, and comes to the office and insists that he needs the panel. However, we have evidence to prove that you've been jogging, you've been going up the mountain, you've been hiking, you've been. How can you justify the use of the blue badge when you're doing all of this, and we know you're doing it because you are posting on social media? Yeah. And people obviously needless to say, when they see an injustice, it is just that they inform us so that we can tackle accordingly, because like we said at the very beginning, we cannot eradicate all the abuse, but the abuse that we can identify through evidence, it has to be tackled accordingly.
And the other flip side to that is people need to understand, the community needs to understand that disability is wide-ranging. And I really struggle a lot of the time finding that middle ground. And I'll give you a prime example. Do you know those little bubbles, I call them bubbles, when you're going to cross the road, those drop curves, when you've got those, they're actually called blisters. Okay. Those are there so that persons with visual impairment know that the end of the pavement is coming and they're going to step onto the road. Mm-hmm. But actually, if you're in chronic pain and let's say in a wheelchair and they wheel you over those little blisters, that can really be painful for somebody in chronic pain. Mm-hmm. What do? Do I remove those blisters and go against legislation and research that's gone into worldwide use of those blisters? Because a person in chronic pain is going to feel that pain even more? Or do I remove the blisters and allow persons with visual impairments onto the road? It's a very difficult balance, and this is something that I feel I can never win, and I feel we're constantly criticised for. But it's finding that middle ground that is going to benefit all disabilities that sometimes is just impossible, and we need to decide on what is safer to the decision to make.
I think we found that middle ground in certain crossings where it's all level.
Yes.
When they cross, they don't come off
Yeah.
The road has been lifted so that when they cross, it's all at a level, so that those issues.
But the good thing is that we do work with the community, and the community do work with us. So we are getting this kind of phone calls and emails, which they send us photos and so on.
It
Which
boils down to
we cannot be
communication.
everywhere. Donovan cannot be in every single place at the same time. Even though he thinks he can, but he cannot.
That's a different story.
He cannot. But we do get this kind of emails and messages and phone calls, and Donovan just needs to go have it. He checks it, takes photos of it, and then he pretty sure that he really liaises with relevant departments.
Sit down with Jenny, we prepare the report, we draft, we prepare our opinion on the best way moving forward. And like we said, we may not get it right every time, but we do try.
I mean, I think it's very much to do with what people call this a social contract. You know? Like, we're in the society together, as a community together. All our rights kind of overlap, and mine end where yours begin, and there are people that have more privilege, and therefore may have to make greater contributions, and people who need to be pulled up because they have vulnerabilities. I think that, you know, this is always going to be a work in progress. No, we're always going to be fitting in those pieces of the puzzle until we have something that looks like harmonious coexistence, and we're never going to get it exactly right. No?
And we're never going to get it exactly right because of what I've just said. Disability is so wide-ranging that
The concept is changing all the time.
the concept is changing, and what I might need now is not what I'm going to need tomorrow. What if you and I share the same diagnosis? How you live it is completely different to how I experience it. So how are we going to find that middle ground? So I have this objective, and Minister Santos has taken this on as a motto for the office, whereby we want to create a society that best needs the needs of everybody, so that every single individual is included in society. I know that is this blue line thinking. I know that is never going to be achieved. Why? Because of what I've just said. However, it's what's keeping me going. It's what's keeping me striving. Yes, you could say that we've set ourselves an impossible aim, but that aim is what we are going to keep on striving till the day that I die.
I think that the key here, and especially in our office, remember we only have 3 of us here, but we've got others in the office, is to educate people.
Yes.
Some of them do come to the office, and the first thing they say is, why do I have to reapply again? If so-and-so's got it, why do I... No, wait. Let me explain. And we've got time. And at the end, they do understand. You know, it's the blue badge, for example, it's something that it goes through a process. It goes through a panel, it goes through a process, and then we get feedback from that panel, and that will be back to the person in question that applied. Sometimes they don't like the final outcome, but it's just educating them. It's just explaining to them, and the office, we've got time to sit down and have a chat and explain.
We don't have time. We make time.
We make time.
There's a difference.
We make time. Yeah.
So, okay, I could be chatting with you guys for a long time, and I hope we can do this again in the future. Yeah. But I would like to end this conversation talking about what are the things that need urgent address. What are the things that we're working on, that we need to work on and deliver as soon as possible?
They work with, so Eben is my people person. He works with people, with charities, families. Donovan is my compliance officer. So I write policies, obviously run by minister, and he enforces them. What do I need? Well, I need lawyers to be back because at the moment they're all working on treaty. We've done a lot on treaty negotiations as well, and there's a lot more that still needs to come out with regards to disability and the treaty negotiations. Once that is done, I can then move on and proceed much quicker. For example, Section 14 of the Disability Act, I've got that practically ready, but I need the lawyers to finish working on the treaty so that we can roll that out. The blue badge, we've got a new blue badge system up and running. We've run it by the councils. We're ready to roll it out. We cannot roll it out until the legislation is changed. Lawyers are working on treaty, so I need that done again. We've got lots and lots of exciting projects coming up. projects which are quite, like I call, meaty and juicy. These are the ones that are really going to impact people's lives. In terms of the SNDO, we've done what we need to do. We're just pending other departments to be able to roll that out. There is always going to be a lot of work with regards to disabilities. I can't actually see the end of it. I've got Microsoft lists in my OneDrive with, I've lost count the amount of projects that I think of that we could be doing. What I obviously do is I prioritize and look at the needs. At the moment, 2026, 2027, we are working on legislation. We're working on revamping policy, putting in policies that are not in place. Why? Because it's never really existed before. So that is the bulk of our work this year and next. In the past, it's been very much project-based. We will continue with projects. I now have a bigger team, so they can continue rolling out projects. For example, in December, we launched the passport. We're now going to make that passport into an app in the autumn. So those are projects that the team can be running along with. But really, we need to get down to the meaty and juicy stuff, and that is that policy, those changes in legislation, those amendments. Sometimes it's just a little amendment that we need to make to the legislation. And what I want to see is that UN convention being extended and ratified to us. The day that happens, it's got to the point that I don't know how I'm going to react. It's been an ongoing teamwork, really, between, and I need to mention Penny Garcia in GLO, and UK government to make sure that this actually does happen, and we are very, very close to it happening. I know lots of people are fed up of us saying that, but it is the reality. It is nearly there.
For me, my side has been, especially because we've got summer around the corner.
No.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've been working non-stop with other relevant departments, GSLA, the environment. So we've been mainly focused on beaches and the pavilion at the same time. So we want to get it up and running. I think everything is going smoothly. Summer will start sooner this year than last year, but we think we're in the right way. Where we really want the beaches to have that facility with people with disabilities.
Like I said at the beginning, we are working on numerous, let's say, projects. The one that I want to see over the line sooner rather than later, and we're hoping it's going to be out there by September, is the Blue Badge revamp. Whether it happens or not by September, we'll see, because there are far too many behind the curtain issues that needs to be tackled. The Blue Badge revamp, in a nutshell, we are changing the time scale that a person can park in a Blue Badge. We are adding where they can park should an accessible bay is not available. We are changing the ability for people that have the card. I've gone blank on the name of the card. We'll
announce it in due course.
So all those things we want to add, hopefully by September. In addition to that, I'm working alongside Jenny with Section 14, the National Disability Strategy, with our counterparts. That there are many other projects that we want to see over the line, and many others that we're going to pick up as we move along.
Yeah. Sorry, Anton, I just want to mention that Donovan also manages the disability coordinators. We have a disability coordinator in practically every government authority, department and agency. And I've handed that over to Donovan, and he does liaison with them, check that they're doing okay, compliance to the National Disability Strategy, and their training.
And those are visible in some of the videos that we've produced.
Yes.
They're linked to the website now, aren't they?
They are,
Yeah,
yes.
And they do an amazing job.
They do, so a big shout out to them.
Once I finish each clinic that I have, if I need to contact anybody from the different departments, I contact the disability coordinators. Straight away they reply back. So it is working, and they're really happy to be on board being a disability coordinator in the actual department.
There's another thing that I want to throw out there, if I can, and that's knowledge and awareness. Like I said at the beginning when I started, for me this was completely new. a new world for me, that it's not just about creating a ramp for people to get in and out. And like I said, knowledge and awareness. If people out there can actually take a minute to look at what they're doing. An example of many is, I'm just going to go to Ramson's to get myself a bollo de tica, and they park on the pavement, not realizing that a person on a wheelchair or even a buggy won't be able to get through. Take that minute to think, am I doing the right thing here? If I can do it, and now I go everywhere and we have countless conversations, this is not accessible. Take a minute. Be aware that life is not just about you.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a great message to end the podcast with. If you're listening, be considerate to the needs of others in the community. I mean, it should go without saying, but please do. This idea that you mentioned, that this always is going to be a work in progress. This is a horizon that, as we get a little bit closer, moves further away from us. But it keeps us walking, and that's what we need to do. We have to keep walking, make the society that's more empathic and understanding and supportive and egalitarian, and that's something we're going to do all together and with everybody out there.
And Gibraltar is an amazing place for awareness, and as such, with different charities and so on, and we can see it day in, day out, and weekends, activities.
I just wanted to say one more thing. I think it's extremely important for the public to reach out to us, to the SNDO. What I don't want to happen is for somebody to have a very valid point, posting that on social media, something that we can help, we agree that needs to be changed, because a lot of the time we agree with you. But because we're not checking, I mean, I for one I've got myself off social media, and so I'm definitely not going to be checking. So I need to know what you're telling me.
So you heard it. If you do have any issues, grievances, concerns, or you just want to chat and you want to feel listened to, and people who share your concerns and who will ever support you, get in touch with everybody at the SNDO. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again sometime in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.